Discover the amazing, heartwarming love story revealed after 12 years of hidden transformation. In the small town of Elmwood, where everyone knew everyone else's business, Sarah hustled through long shifts at the diner, her spirit as warm as the coffee she poured. At just 28, she held the weight of her world on her shoulders, balancing late-night classes, the care of her ailing mother, and endless gossip from townsfolk who never hesitated to judge. But it wasn't merely survival that fueled her, it was dreams of college wrapped tightly in a passion for something more. Every day, the clatter of dishes blended with laughter and fragments of gossip, creating a tapestry of life that buzzed through the diner. It was here, amidst the chatter and the clinking of glasses, that her secret heartthrob, James, would sit in the corner booth, a silhouette against the backdrop of a bustling community. An overlooked veteran, he wrestled with wounds that were not just physical. With every shared glance, Sarah felt a warmth that pierced the chaos around them, a connection forged in quiet understanding. James, with his charming smile and distant eyes, was a testament to resilience, yet he sensed the whispers behind his back. The low-income kid turned soldier turned outcast, labeled by a society that refused to see beyond mere appearances. As Sarah served him meals, the world outside felt like a storm brewing. The news of a manufacturing plant closing sent shockwaves through Elmwood. Jobs vanished like mirages, leaving families in despair. But Sarah and James did not falter. They rallied together, igniting the embers of hope, transforming an abandoned building into a community center, a beacon of collaboration and determination, but their bond faced trials. The prejudices of neighbors emerged like thorns, sharp and punishing. Sarah's heart ached as they judged James, and she questioned if their love could withstand the storm. Could it survive when the very fabric of their community frayed at the seams? Then, one fateful day, everything shifted. Among his scattered belongings, an old journal came to light. Its pages chronicled not just battles fought and lost, but the brave heart of a hero who fought for so much more than the nation. It captured James's struggles, his sacrifices, and the depths of his spirit. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With this insight, Sarah felt new resolve surge within her. She stood by James, addressing the townspeople with unwavering courage, urging them to see past the facade. Fear gripped her fiercely, as doubt clung to her hope like a shadow. But she believed with every thread of her being change was possible. As the night of the gathering approached, a palpable tension hung in the air, thick enough to cut. The flickering gym lights created a haunting atmosphere of unresolved emotions. When James stepped up to speak, there was a moment of breathless silence, like the calm before a storm. Would love win over prejudice, or would judgment seal their fate? The air crackled with anticipation. Whatever would happen next, one thing was certain: this was just the beginning of a battle for not just love, but acceptance. James stood at the front of the gym, his breath shallow as he scanned the crowd. Faces filled with skepticism, disappointment, and a few glimpses of support met his gaze. He could almost hear the whispers swirling around him, sharp and accusatory. But the weight of uncertainty was nothing compared to the greater purpose he felt surging within him. "Thank you for being here," he started, his voice steady yet fragile. "I know many of you have your opinions about me, about my past. But I am not here today to defend who I am. I'm here to share who I can still become." A flicker of surprise rippled through the audience. His honesty was raw, and in that moment, he stripped away his mask of strength. Sarah stood at the back, heart pounding as she watched him expose his soul. Her gaze locked onto his, offering silent encouragement. She knew this was no ordinary speech, it was a lifeline for both of them and, possibly, their community. James took a step closer to the microphone, hands trembling. "When I came back from the war, I was broken. I had lost brothers and found myself fighting battles that never seemed to end. The scars I carry are not just on my body, they are in my spirit. I've felt abandoned and forgotten like I was less than human. His voice cracked, the vulnerability washing over him like a wave. Gasps echoed in the gym. With every word, he unraveled the threads of the soldier they thought they knew, replacing it with the man they had judged. People shifted in their seats, some squirming under the weight of their own shame. I didn't choose where I came from, nor did I choose the battles fate handed me. But I do choose to stand here today, not just for myself but for the kids in this town, for families struggling in the wake of the plant closure. Together, we can create a community where we lift each other up instead of tearing one another down. Sarah felt her heart swell with pride. His courage sparked something in her. Suddenly, the obstacles seemed surmountable, the darkness pale in comparison to the light shimmering just beyond. As James continued, the atmosphere shifted. It was tangible, as if hope was a collective breath slowly being drawn in by everyone present, yet, as the speech approached its peak, the first riser broke from the crowd. "You're nothing but a troubled soldier. We can't trust you." A voice rang out, piercing the moment like a dagger. Murmurs of agreement spread like wildfire, reigniting the embers of doubt. James flinched, a flicker of hurt flashing in his eyes. But Sarah stepped forward, fists clenched. "Maybe we can learn something from James. We need to start seeing one another as humans, not just labels." Her voice rose above the chatter, firm and defiant. "You think James doesn't feel pain? He fought for this country, for our freedom. And yet here he stands, pouring his heart out to us." The crowd shifted again, uncertainty sparking in the silence that followed. Hearts began to soften, breaking the shell of prejudice that gripped Elmwood. But the hour was late, and a battle of emotions lay ahead. Could they find common ground? And there, in that moment of confusion, Sarah felt a flicker of hope take root. In the struggle to accept James, would the townspeople also find acceptance of their own judgments? The tension hung thick in the air, pulsing with unspoken emotions. As a few faces began to soften, others hardened, leaving Sarah to wonder, could they really change? Would love break the chains of prejudice, or was this only the beginning of a deeper fight? James stood there, raw and exposed, as the crowd shifted under the weight of his words. The whispers faded, replaced by a heavy silence filled with uncertainty. Sarah felt her heart race, everything hinged on this moment. Would they accept James, or would fear and prejudice pull them back? "Hero or troubled soldier," a voice from the back called out, voice steeped in anger. "What do you expect us to believe? You've only come back to stir up old wounds." James's expression darkened. It felt as if the floor had dropped beneath him. Pain twisted in his chest, but Sarah refused to let the doubt win. "This isn't about the past." She shouted into the silence, her voice ringing like a bell in the lower gym. "It's about the future. It's about healing. Look at him. Look at us." There was a heaviness in the gym that weighed on them all, the tension almost suffocating. She could see a few faces beginning to respond, brows furrowing in contemplation as they looked from James to her. Would they understand? Would they engage? James took a deep breath, gathering his strength like a soldier preparing for battle. "I came here today not for your forgiveness, but to ask for your help," he said, his voice more solid now. "We're in this together. We can be more than just individuals, a fractured community." Slowly, a murmur rippled through the crowd. Some heads nodded. Others looked skeptical, but that very act of pondering was a step, however small. Hope inflated in Sarah's chest like a balloon, buoying her spirits. Think about it. Everyone in this room has faced their own struggles. We may not all wear uniforms, but we all have battles to fight. He glanced at a group of teens at the front, feeling their restlessness. For some, it's loneliness, for others, it's poverty or illness. Let us not let the past hold us back from what we can achieve. Someone in the crowd shifted, the sound of a chair scraping against the floor breaking the stillness. It was a middle-aged woman with tears brimming in her eyes. "My brother came back from the war, and he was lost like you say you were, James." Her voice faltered. "I just didn't know how to help him." Seeing her vulnerability, James stepped forward. "I understand that pain. I still live with it every day. But if you're willing to open your hearts, together we can find our way again." The crowd leaned in closer, breaths held. Something in the air shifted, a collective realization began to take root. Sarah felt warmth spreading through her body. It was an awakening, the possibility of transformation. Could they really do this together? Suddenly, a young girl's voice broke through the unspoken tension from the back. "But what if we fail again? What if we trust, and it hurts?" James's gaze softened, a knowing understanding in his eyes. "What if we do nothing, and our silence only deepens the scars? Transformation isn't always pretty, but growth rarely is. We have to try. We owe it to ourselves, and to each other." At that moment, Sarah saw something change, an ember igniting within the audience. Faces that had once bristled with distrust were softening, leaning into a fragile exploration of empathy. Just as hope flickered brightly, James raised his hand, signaling for calm. "But I need your support. To create change, we must come together." A whisper from the end of the gym caught her attention, a murmur of shared sentiments spreading through the crowd like wildfire. "If he can change, maybe we can. Together." The air hummed with potential, the energy raw and alive. But just as James turned to Sarah, a commotion erupted. A group on the edge of the crowd shouted dissent, refusing to let go of their anger and prejudice. Curiosity bloomed in Sarah. Would the tide turn completely, or would old wounds prevent them from reaching for each other? In that fragile moment, she realized they stood at a crossroads. Would they choose acceptance and love, or would they retreat back into the shadows of misunderstanding? The shout echoed off the gym walls, reverberating like cannon fire in the sudden stillness. Anger so potent it felt like a tidal wave surged from the dissenters, threatening to swallow the moment whole. "You think you can just waltz back in here? You don't belong. You're a part of the problem." James's face pulsed with hurt, but beneath his turmoil, Sarah saw a flicker of determination. Was he going to back down? "Not now. I understand how you feel," he called out, voice steady, yet edged with urgency. "I've felt lost, too disconnected from everyone at home, feeling like I didn't deserve a place here. But I want to change that." The room was split, torn between familiar animosity and the budding insight that started to blossom among some. James's honest plea stirred confusion and hope alike. Would they reject him outright, or could they muster the courage to step over the chasm of misunderstanding? A deep breath filled the silence, and Sarah watched as the middle-aged woman from earlier stood tall. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice gained strength. "I don't know how to heal my brother. He lost himself to grief when he came home, just as you did. But it sounds like you're trying to find a way back. Maybe we can help each other." The murmur that followed felt like the stirring of a storm. It rumbled through the audience, a collective acknowledgement of shared pain. Even the dissenters' grip on anger seemed loosened, giving way to cautious curiosity. James's eyes locked onto hers, and in that moment, the two shared a silent understanding. "Yes. Helping each other is the key," he declared with palpable urgency, his voice carrying the weight of desperation. "We can't keep running from our pasts. Together, we can learn how to heal. But it starts with breaking down these walls." More voices joined in, some supportive, some still unsure, but all were beginning to engage. I have felt alone too," a young man spoke hesitantly, his words a shy candle flickering in the dim and ever brighter halls of doubt. As the crowd coalesced into a dialogue, Sarah's pulse quickened. There was a palpable electricity in the air, an urgency for connection rising like dough, and she smiled, intuiting that a small spark was igniting. But then, a shout cut through. "Don't be fooled. He's just another soldier looking for sympathy. Where's his accountability?" The naysayer's voice boomed harder this time, determination rooted in fear. That dark urgency seeped back in, threatening to stifle the budding light. James met the opponent's furious gaze with intensity. "I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm asking for understanding, for us to face our demons together. Why should we care?" Came another voice, a repellent wall threatening to crush the fragile camaraderie growing around them. "What's in it for us?" And there it was, the ultimatum lay before them. Sarah felt her heart race. What if we change? What if we find a way to truly unite instead of dividing? Her own voice burst from somewhere deep inside, ignited by a mixture of fear and fierce passion. This is our chance. We can find hope and strength in our stories if we're willing to share and listen. A ripple of hesitance touched a few heads as they processed her words. James turned back to the crowd, eyes blazing. "Imagine a community where we all stand together strong. A community that bridges the gap between those who fought and those who stayed. This is how we create a future we can be proud of." Suddenly, it happened, a hand shot up from among the dissenters. A spike of anticipation filled the air. Was it a wave of connection? And just like that, Sarah was on the edge of something monumental. Could they convince those standing proud against them to join in? Would their fears yield to hope? Questions loomed large as all faces turned, breath held, waiting for what would come next. A decision hung in the air, thick and ready to burst at any moment. Would they stand together in the face of their past, or let the darkness of misunderstanding prevail? As the hand rose, a collective gasp rippled through the room. It was a young woman, maybe in her 20s, with a fierce look. Her brows knitted together as if she'd been wrestling with her own demons. The silence stretched like a taut string, ready to snap. "What do you mean change?" she asked, her voice trembling yet defiant. "You talk about unity as if it's that simple. But how can we just forget the pain? How do we forgive?" James stepped forward. "Forgiveness isn't forgetting," he said softly, his gaze unwavering. "It's about letting go of the weight, finding a way to move forward positively. We've all carried our burdens. Alone, they feel heavy. Together, we can lift them." The young woman glanced at her friends, then back to James. "And what if you're just saying what we want to hear? What if you're wrong?" James inhaled deeply, drawing courage from the ground beneath his feet. "That's a risk we all take when we open up. But I'm here, sharing my truth. I have scars, just like you all do. I've made mistakes, and I'm here to learn from them." A murmur of agreement and dissent coursed through the crowd. Sarah felt the tension seeping away slightly, hope fluttered in the corners of the room. This moment was more than a confrontation, it was an invitation. But an invitation to what? To confront their truths together. "Look," Sarah interjected, her heart racing, "what if we had a chance to share our stories? To really understand what we've all been through? Maybe it will help us heal." "Tell us your story," shouted someone from the back, igniting a spark of curiosity. James glanced at Sarah, digging deep for the right words. "I came back lost," he started slowly. "I thought I knew what I was fighting for. But I returned to a world that felt foreign. I hurt people I loved. And there was a time when I didn't know how to get past my guilt. I realized I needed to face not just my actions but my feelings. That's how I learned I wasn't alone." Intrigued faces turned toward him. The ice was starting to crack. He continued, "I want to know what you all are feeling. What made you angry or sad? Maybe those feelings are more connected than we realize. Maybe our voices, our stories could build bridges instead of walls." Another hand shot up, this one from a man in his 40s who had been silent until now. "My son came home changed," he admitted, his voice breaking. "I don't recognize him anymore. It hurts. Can you really help him?" The room held its breath. This man wore the same pain everyone felt in their bones. James nodded gravely. "That's why we're here. We need each other. A flicker of hope sparked in Sarah's chest. She could see some faces softening, walls beginning to melt like ice under a spring sun. "We can do this," she exclaimed. "Think of it as an open forum like our own healing circle. We talk, we share, we embrace our vulnerability together." The room buzzed with energy, thoughts swirling, emotions intertwining. Was this truly possible? Could they really unearth and share their dark times to find light? Suddenly, a quiet voice broke through the clamor. "And if we put ourselves out there, what happens if it all goes wrong?" An uncertainty seeped in, overshadowing their budding hope. Could they truly trust each other? James felt the weight of that fear pressing down again, but he stood tall. It might go wrong. But it might also go right. That's life unpredictable. But we need to try. We owe it to ourselves to take the chance. A moment of silent contemplation engulfed the room. Could they push beyond their trepidation? Could they gather the courage to share their stories and find strength together? As they weighed their options, Sarah clutched her heart, her thoughts racing. She could feel the potential. Would they choose vulnerability over fear? And in that charged atmosphere, uncertainty hung in the air, stirring thoughts of what was yet to come. Would this test strengthen them or tear them apart? The decision loomed, heavy and profound. What would they decide? A low murmur spread through the crowd. Faces were still, absorbing the weight of James's words. In the tension, Sarah's heart thumped. This was the moment. They had to decide: hold on to their fear or leap into vulnerability. I think we should do it," the fierce young woman said, her voice stronger now. "We've been afraid for too long. If we don't start somewhere, we won't ever move forward." Her friends turned towards her, expressions shifting. There was a flicker of something in understanding, maybe. Sarah felt a rush of relief. It felt like a crack of light breaking through heavy clouds. Okay. James clapped his hands lightly, ready to capture this moment. "We can start simple. Share a little piece of what has been hurting you. Even just a thought. It doesn't have to be the deepest wound right away, just something real." The man who had spoken before drew a shaky breath. "I don't know how to reach my son anymore. He's a ghost of who he was and I feel like I'm failing him." As he carefully unraveled his heart, the emotions flooded out, raw and real. "Every time I look at him, I see the man he used to be, and it tears me apart." Tears glistened in his eyes. The room was still again, holding that pain together like a fragile thread. But as more people began to share, Sarah noticed something remarkable. Each story was like a pinprick of light in a dark room. People spoke of loss, of fear, of regret. But each story was met with nods, with soft murmurs of understanding. They were not alone. A middle-aged woman with silver streaks in her hair timidly raised her hand next. "I lost my partner last year. I didn't think I could survive that pain. And day by day, the ache it doesn't go away." Her voice wavered, but she pressed on. "I'm here because I need to find a way to live again." Each voice mingled in the air, weaving an intricate tapestry of shared human struggle. Sarah was amazed. Where there had been silence, there was now a chorus of stories. A wound was opening, but healing was beginning as well. James nodded in encouragement after each soul laid bare their truth. He could see a community starting to form, the frail connections strengthening, one story at a time. "Thank you for sharing," he said softly, the sincerity melting through the air like warmth. "Every single story matters. It's proof we are okay to show our wounds. It's okay to cry, to feel lost. But together, we are finding our way back." Sarah felt the power of their gathering. People were fighting their fear, and it felt electric. But the uncertainty still loomed like shadows, threatening to close in. "And if we choose to take this path," James continued, "we'll encounter difficult feelings along the way. But we'll also discover incredible strength in ourselves and each other. Let us promise to hold on to each other through this journey." Tension hung in the air, yet the atmosphere was alive with renewed energy. This was a turning point, but the hesitation lingered. What if they encountered resistance? What if old wounds reopened? As hearts began to open, Sarah looked around. She felt a swell of hope, but an urgency bubbled within her. "We can build this together," she whispered, intent on stirring the group further, feeling as if she stood on the edge of a cliff. "Will you go deeper with me?" At her words, the room collectively inhaled, a ripple of curiosity and determination crossing faces. They were stepping into the unknown. James stepped back, sensing the monumental decision resting in their hands. The moment hummed with potential united but fragile, maybe they really could transform darkness into light. But as shadows of doubt still flickered, Sarah couldn't shake the thought, would they truly have the strength to face what was hidden and allow their stories to heal them? As determination firmed in her heart, Sarah knew they were on the brink of something life-changing. The individual stories had started, and with them, a path unfolded. But what awaited them on this shared journey? Would they emerge stronger, or would the burden of their past weigh them down forever? The air grew thick with anticipation as Sarah leaned forward, her heart racing. "Let us not just stop at our pain," she said, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. "What if we each share a moment when we felt love? Something that gave us hope or joy, however tiny it might seem. We can weave those moments in too." The room fell silent, and she felt the weight of their gazes, a mix of skepticism and curiosity. She swallowed hard, feeling the heat prickling at her eyes. "If we can face the darkness together, maybe we can find the light too." James nodded slowly, a smile breaking through his initial surprise. "That's a beautiful idea, Sarah. Let us create space for both the sorrow and the joy." The man who had spoken earlier, the one with the lost son, hesitated before speaking again. "I remember my son's first baseball game. He could barely hold the bat, but he ran to the front line, full of determination. I felt so proud, so alive. Those moments remind me of who he is, even now." His voice cracked again, tears spilling down his cheeks, yet there was a flicker of something brighter in his eyes. Hope. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room, as others began to join in. The middle-aged woman spoke up, "Before I lost my partner, we danced every Saturday night in our living room. Just the two of us. I can still hear the music playing, the laughter we shared. That memory helps me breathe." One by one, they shared their snippets of joy, moments floating into the air like bright balloons against the weighty clouds of sorrow. A young mother spoke of her baby's first smile, an elderly man remembered the warmth of his wife's hand in his on quiet evenings, a teenager recalled a fleeting moment of laughter in a hospital room that proved to be a light in the dark. Slowly, Sarah felt her chest loosen, her heart expanding as she listened. Tears mingled with smiles as the group breathed in these tender moments, understanding their shared humanity more deeply. "It's like we're building a bridge," she whispered, almost to herself. "Exactly," James encouraged, watching in awe as the connections thrummed to life around them. "Every story binds us closer. We're proving we're not defined by our struggles but by the love we carry and share." But even as they celebrated, Sarah still sensed a haunting presence in the room, an undercurrent of fear. What if digging deeper brought out buried grudges? What if some wounds were too raw? Just then, a quiet voice emerged from the back. It belonged to a soft-spoken woman, one who had only listened up until now. "I want to share, but my darkness is ugly. It's not a pretty story like the ones I've heard. What if I can't move past it? What if it changes everything?" The group fell silent again, their collective heartbeats echoing in the dim room. A nervous energy filled the space, a mix of anticipation and apprehension. Sarah felt her own heart hammering as she glanced around at the faces, each a battlefield of worries and hopes interwoven. Would they have the strength to face their fears together? James stepped forward with compassion radiating from his eyes. "Your voice matters, just like everyone else's. Sharing isn't easy, but every wound and every triumph holds power. None of us can diminish what you carry." "Yeah," Sarah echoed softly, feeling a mix of dread and courage. Whatever your truth is, we're here. You won't be alone. But as the woman gathered her breath, Sarah couldn't help but wonder if they unraveled their deepest sorrows, what darkness could they unleash? Could they emerge transformed, or would the shadows consume them? As the woman took a deep breath and began to speak, the room hung on her every word, ready to navigate the raw path of healing whatever lay ahead. The room held its breath, a collective silence weighing heavily on everyone as the woman finally began to speak. "My name is Grace," she said softly, her voice trembling but steadying with each passing second. "And I've been living in a shadow for too long." Her gaze wandered to the floor, tracing invisible patterns in the carpet. "For years ago, I lost my daughter in an accident. She was only 8. It shattered my world." Her breath hitched, and she paused, allowing the weight of her grief to rest among the gathered souls. The air shifted, filled with a mix of pain and solidarity. Sarah felt her own heart open wider for Grace, knowing the power that vulnerability could unlock. It was the kind of truth that could tear through the veil of silence, shattering the fear of being judged. Grace looked up, meeting the eyes of everyone in the room as if absorbing their courage, their light. "In the dark times, I thought my heart would never heal. I buried myself in work, drowning out any feeling. But one day, while cleaning her room, I found an old box filled with her art. Drawings of love and life, they were vibrant, so unlike the heaviness I felt. In those moments, she reminded me who I was supposed to be." A tear slipped down Grace's cheek, quickly followed by others as she shared about how her daughter had drawn hearts, flowers, and scenes of their favorite park, colors bursting from the pages. "I realized that she would want me to live, to find joy again. But it's hard, you know. There's a constant battle between remembering her and letting go of the pain." James stepped forward, his expression a mix of empathy and understanding. "That's a powerful revelation, Grace. There is such bravery in allowing ourselves to feel both the love we carry and the weight of loss. They coexist." Grace nodded, sniffling lightly as she embraced the warmth of shared humanity. "I've started painting again. It's not just about the loss anymore, it's about celebrating her spirit. But I still feel so unworthy of happiness sometimes." A ripple of understanding echoed around the group. Each face reflected their own struggles with guilt after loss, the unease of moving forward while still tethered to the past. As hearts opened wider, a voice emerged from the corner. "I can relate," said the elderly man who had spoken earlier. "After my wife's death, I filled my days with chores and tasks, as if staying busy could fill the void. But I realized, when I smiled at her favorite memories, it felt like she was still watching over me. The laughter, the love, it's all still alive." A murmur of agreement filled the room, another layer of connection forming between them. They were threading each other's stories into a tapestry of resilience, where grief didn't negate love but rather painted it in deeper shades. Sarah felt tears spring to her eyes again, but now, they were tinged with something lighter, an acknowledgement of hope. "Grace, you've shared so much with us. It's okay to struggle and still find joy. Remember, in every shade of your journey, there's magic held in your heart." Grace shared a hesitant smile, her lips trembling as if ignited by the kindness surrounding her. But just as the atmosphere lightened, another voice broke the spell. "What if I don't know how to let go?" A younger man, sitting at the back, looked troubled, anxiety etched on his features. "I went through something terrible, and now I'm scared. What if I can't find my way out?" The weight of his question hung in the air. The group faced an unsettling truth: there were still fears lurking in the shadows, thoughts unexpressed. What if the light they were seeking felt eternally out of reach? As Grace looked around the room, she felt a wave of determination surge within her. Together, they could battle the dark corners of fear, and she would allow herself to be both vulnerable and brave. The mixture of vulnerability around them was an invitation to go deeper. Sarah took a deep breath, ready to embrace this unfolding journey. How would they navigate the unknown? What truths awaited them? Next. The bond was forming, but the hardest revelations were yet to come. Grace looked at the younger man, her heart aching for his confusion. "It's okay to not know how to let go," she said, her voice soft yet firm. "Sometimes it feels like we carry our losses as a badge of honor, as if moving on means forgetting." He nodded, his eyes reflecting a deep sadness, an understanding that resonated among the group. "I don't want to forget. She was everything to me." His voice cracked, and a few members of the group leaned in, their expressions radiating empathy. "Neither do any of us," Sarah interjected, her tone warm. "The memories are a part of who you are. They shape you." She glanced around, making sure everyone felt the weight of her words. "It's about finding a way to honor them while still allowing space for joy." The man's shoulders seemed to relax just a little. "You're saying it's okay to feel both, sadness and hope." "Exactly," James chimed in. "There's a beauty in understanding that our loved ones don't want us trapped in sorrow. They want us to live fully, to laugh again. That love transforms, it doesn't vanish." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Everyone could feel the shift, the way Grace seemed to blanket their fears. "But how?" The young man's voice held a flicker of desperation. "How do you take those first steps? I feel paralyzed." Grace leaned forward, her expression earnest. "Start small. Do one thing that reminds you of her." For me, it was picking up a paintbrush again. It wasn't about creating a masterpiece, it was about reconnecting with a part of me that she loved. Maybe for you, it could be a favorite song, or a walk where you both shared laughs. The young man's gaze brightened slightly. "I used to play guitar. She loved when I played." "Then pick it up," Grace encouraged. "Play for her. Let those notes fill your heart, let her spirit guide your hands. You might find that music carries both sorrow and light." "But what if I can't?" he whispered, doubt threading through his voice again. "Then we're all here for you," Sarah said, her eyes steady and reassuring. "We can face those daunting feelings together. You're not alone in this." The room buzzed with renewed energy, their shared stories binding them tighter. Each heart resonated with the essential truth: vulnerability was the key. Just then, Claire, a soft-spoken woman who had been quietly observing, raised her hand. "I've been afraid to speak because my journey feels trivial compared to everyone else's. My loss wasn't as devastating, but the emptiness feels just as real." All eyes turned to Claire, inviting her to share. "I lost my best friend in college. We promised to grow old together, and now I can't shake the feeling that I've failed her by moving on." "That's not trivial," Grace responded gently, her heart aching for the weight Claire carried. "Grief doesn't compare. Each loss, no matter the context, brings its own kind of heartache. It's okay to feel the pull of both loss and life. You loved her fiercely, and that love leaves a mark." A collective nod spread through the group, a silent agreement that their experiences were intertwined, each one echoing with loss and love. With newfound determination gleaming in their eyes, they turned back to the younger man. "What will you do next?" Grace asked gently. He paused, sensing the warmth of support softly enveloping him. I think I'll play tonight," he whispered, a tentative smile beginning to bloom. "Good," echoed several voices, encouraging him. As everyone joined in on sharing what they would do next, stronger connections began to form. Laughter replaced tears, the air filled with both sorrow and a whisper of hope. Each person dared to weave their narrative further into one another, but just as the air grew lighter, Sarah felt a chill. What happens if we face the memories and still feel lost? What if it doesn't help? The question hung, a heavy truth, ready to surface. How deep would they need to dive to confront their hidden fears? Would they all emerge stronger, or would they unearth parts of themselves better left behind? The evening was still young, but the journey was just beginning. As the evening unfolded, a flicker of possibility ignited in the hearts of those gathered in that gymnasium. The shared stories of love, loss, and resilience formed an invisible thread binding them together. Even in the tumult of sorrow, they found solace in each other's raw honesty. It was like a balm to their aching souls. James took a deep breath, letting the warmth wash over him. "This is what transformation looks like, people," he said, his voice rising with passion. "It's a messy, beautiful process. But together, we are a force to be reckoned with." The room erupted with supportive murmurs and nods of agreement. As the night wore on, the conversation shifted seamlessly between shared pain and laughter. They delved into vulnerable confessions, allowing the darkness to coexist with the glimmers of joy. It felt safe, like a refuge from the judgment they had feared. "Remember that first home run I hit?" a tall man shared, chuckling slightly. "I was so excited that I forgot to touch second base." Laughter erupted like a dam bursting, echoing off the gym walls. Yet, they also shared the harder truths. A woman spoke up, her voice trembling with emotion. "I still wake up and think I hear my partner's voice, and then it hits me, they're gone." Her eyes glistened, reflecting the hurt they all carried. "But I've begun talking to them, keeping their memory alive. It still hurts, but it also keeps me connected." "That's it," Sarah interjected, wiping her eyes, electrified by the growing energy. "Those connections are alive as long as we let them be. Our stories, be they heavy or light, they're what shape us." James nodded, reaching for her hand. "And in those stories, there's a key to unlocking our paths forward." Suddenly, an overwhelming wave of realization swept through the room. The fear that had loomed like a dark cloud started to dissipate. It didn't matter if each wound felt monumental or trivial, it was the act of sharing that created the healing. As the conversations cascaded like a waterfall, people began to stand and share their personal commitments. "I'll start communicating more with my son," a father said decisively. "I'll set aside time to listen to him, even when it's uncomfortable." Hope glinted anew in Sarah's eyes, and she squeezed James's hand tighter. One by one, they each made it known: "I'll reach out to friends I've lost touch with. I'll volunteer at that community center. I'll write a letter to my daughter." The air crackled with anticipation, an electric hum of change and shared purpose. James stepped back up, struggling to contain his emotions. "Everyone here is taking steps, and that's monumental. Together, we're transforming not just our lives, but Elmwood." His voice resonated with a fierce determination. "This is just the beginning. We'll not only support each other but extend that support into our community." As the crowd erupted into cheers, a young girl with bright eyes stood up in the corner, hesitantly raising her hand. "Can I join in?" she asked, her voice sweet yet powerful. "I want to tell you about my dreams. I want to be heard." "Yes!" James shouted, a chorus of approval following his lead. With laughter and applause resounding around her, the girl stepped forward, and soon she shared her dreams of becoming an artist, illustrating the stories of their community, the heartbeats of who they were and where they were headed. As she spoke, Sarah felt a rush of pride swell within her. These weren't just strangers in a gym anymore, they were a family founded in understanding and shared struggle. As the night drew to a close, they formed a circle, holding hands, anchoring themselves in unity. "Let us promise to carry this forward," James said, his voice filled with sincerity. "We may stumble. There will be days when the past will claw at our heels. But together, we'll lift each other back up again." "Agreed," Sarah shouted, her heart full of hope. "And let us keep sharing our joys too. Remember, they deserve to shine just as brightly as the pain does." As laughter cascaded through the circle, the crowd felt alive, ready to embrace whatever future lay ahead. They were together, a community no longer divided by labels or fear, but united by their shared humanity, passion, and dreams. The final moment of the night solidified a new beginning, an unbreakable commitment to one another, a resounding vow to heal, lift, and inspire. As they slowly broke apart, the warmth of togetherness lingered in the air, vibrant and alive. And with that shared warmth, each heart left that gym, a little lighter, a little brighter, and brimming with possibility. "Now, it's your turn. Join our journey of transformation. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread the love. Comment below about your reactions and feelings regarding this ending. Your words matter. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Real fans know the importance of lifting each other up.